Okay, so you are probably wondering, how can I create a thumbnail image for my video which is similar to this? I don't know what this emoji is called. I don't know who made it, what the intentions were, but I'm gonna be using this in this video, and there's really nobody who can stop me, because this is my favorite emoji in the world. And in this video, I'm going to show you how, create this 3D effect, the shadows, the hands, and whatnot. Now, I have prepared some of the images, right? Usually, I start with this background image, and I place it in Photoshop, and the Photoshop file is 1920 by 1080, which is the classic full HD, I think it's called, resolution of a thumbnail image. Now, if I look at this and I think to myself, how do I imagine my thumbnail to be, right? I usually look at, actually this is a screenshot taken from in-game, I'm not going to show you how I did that because it's, I think it's pretty straightforward how to do that. So if you have any questions, please write them, because maybe, I don't know, maybe some people want to know how exactly to take a screenshot in game, because all kinds of things in this universe are perceived to be hard, but in fact are very easy. So yeah, I look at this and I think, okay, I want my thumbnail to be of this mid lane. I think we all know where this image is from, right? People maybe some people have PTSD of this image. But, oh, sorry, I should have had a trigger warning before I dragged this image into my screen, because, yeah, those of you who have PTSD, you might be traumatized right now. Now, I think that, as I said, I think I'm going to be focusing on this mid lane here, and usually, that's just an artistic decision, as it's called. So I'm going to press Ctrl T. I'm going to scale this up so that it kind of, centers this. Maybe this is also kind of your preference. I actually advise, even if you are just a beginner in this stuff, I advise always to look at something with your own eyes and think, does this feel right to me? Because I believe that that's the most important thing, because if you're following some rules, rules can have their place, but very, very often it's going to sound cheesy and it's going to sound lame, but it's not lame. It's actually, I believe this. You have your own vision, and I believe that the more you look at something and make it your own, the higher the chance that that's going to be something original and something that people will want to look at. At least that's my kind of philosophy of it. So if I think that this is okay, actually, let me just move this with my arrow keys a little bit to the left. If I think this is okay, then I kind of think, okay, this is okay. I will duplicate this, right click here, duplicate it, create a copy, right? And the reason why I'm doing this is because when I rasterize this, it's gonna, the original picture is a little bit bigger, as you can see if you drag. It's a little bit bigger than the window, right? So when you rasterize this, what you want to do, you want to add, if you double click this, you want to add, can I double click this? Yes. You want to add this inner shadow. And as you can see, this inner shadow works only on the left and bottom walls, quote unquote, edges. And the reason for that is because the image is bigger. And if you want it to work on these walls as well, you're going to have to cut this image. One way of doing that would be to take this rectangular marquee tool, and select all of this, press Ctrl X, which is gonna cut it, actually. Let me disable this so you can see what happened. Ctrl X, it cuts it, then Ctrl Shift V, it's gonna paste it in the same place. Now I can Alt drag this effect over here. As you can see, boom, it works on all of the edges, just because the image now is, this is the way the image works. And, you know, to my mind, this looks good, you know. I like it. I like the way it looks. You can actually go in here as well, and you can change these because it's gonna look different. You know, this choke. I'm not sure what this does. I can't explain this in language. I can only visually see what this does. You know, distance it's not going to be needed for us just because it depends on the angle. And oh yeah, it's good that I showed you this because the default values, I think if I press reset to default, yeah, this is not even going to work for you off the bat. So what I want to do is change this distance, increase the size to as big as I can, and change this opacity to also as big as I can. So now you can see that this works, right? Yes, boom. It's nice that I went in here because I was about to leave this and say, you know, that's how easy it is. But this is easy too, you know, even if your default values are the way they are. Okay, I think that I am ready to jump into the next step. And all I need to do for that is to just Control-Shift-Alt-S, which is going to save this image. I'm going to save it in my folder. I'm going to call it thumbnail image background. And click enter. Boom. Okay, so the next step would be to open up Cinema 4D. Don't be afraid. You know, if you're opening this up for the first time, there's nothing complicated going on. Just follow my voice. Do what I do, and it's gonna be fine. And you are gonna end up with a thumbnail image. You know, and hopefully you will have learned some stuff. Now press Shift C. And find and write background here, right? Press enter, and this background object is going to appear. Now go into your folder, drag in this newly created image that you saved from Photoshop, drag it in here, click yes, and drag this on your background object. Boom. This is very important. This is the important step, right? Because as you can see now, you can kind of zoom around in the scene, and you can kind of move around this grid so that it a little bit, you know, matches the kind of like the background image. And it's not terribly important that it matches like 100%. And I think in my case, this is going to be enough. Now, if you click again Shift C, it's opening up the command window. This is called the command window because, you know, I guess you command the program to do stuff from this. Makes sense, right? And write cube, right? Click enter. The cube is going to appear. And now you can drag around, again, the camera, which is, I guess, you know, I guess I should tell you that if you click Alt and right click, it's going to zoom. If you Alt middle click, it's going to pan, I think. And if you Alt left click, it's going to rotate, right? And this way you can kind of fit it to your scene. And in this case, it's really important because the background image has a certain perspective and you have to match it to have better results. Now, next, go in here, create this material, which is called new node material, okay? It appears over here. Now you can drag it onto your cube. Nothing's gonna be, oh, something changed, but you're not gonna see the results until you create a plane. I'm gonna create a plane the same way I did before. I'm gonna probably increase the size of this holding down Shift, because if you increase the size just dragging with your mouse, it increases it, you know, this amount, but Shift, it increases it kind of faster, you know. So I'm gonna hold down Shift, increase the size of this plane, so it's something like this, because this is the place I know that the shadow is gonna be needed, and all this process is basically for the reason to create a shadow which is gonna match with the background. So this cube could have a shadow. Actually, let me click on this cube, drag it up just a little bit, and now the magical magical part is gonna come, okay? Oh, before then, one more thing. I want to search for an area light, okay? I click enter. This light appears. Now I can drag it up a little bit. I can maybe even turn it. Actually, let me press F5 and move this window just a little bit like this so that it's easier to see how exactly I'm moving this area light. Let me go in the moving mode, move it up a little bit. And now if I click over here in this start IPR, you can see that something beautiful is happening, right? Yes. Now, what you want to do is get rid of this plane, but leave the shadow. How do you do that? Good question. You click on this plane, you search for RS object, you click enter, this little icon is going to appear. You click on matte, override, enable. Now, as you can see, it disappeared. You can click F1 to go back into this full screen. Kind of F5 is this, F1 is this. And if you click enable shadow, boom, that's it. This is kind of like the meat of this tutorial. And to make it look better, you can click this fillet. You know, it's going to create a little bit of a round edge on this. And usually in 3D, round edges, well, they look better because in real life, they look more convincing, let's just say that. And if you're going for a convincing look, you should always, I think, click this fillet or, you know, try to get round edges for your objects. Now, if you look at this image, you can see that the light is coming from, you know, if you look at this tower right here, you can see that the light is coming from left, top left maybe. And over here, you can see that as well. Even though here you don't even see that light, you know, but the towers have it. You know, I don't know what's going on there, itty-witty-dee, but you kind of always want to replicate that. So let me just go in here and try to move the light somehow so that it just, you know, imitates that just a little bit. You know, what I'm doing here is if you click here on the scaling tool, I guess it's called, you can scale the light so it's bigger. So it's going to become brighter, but the shadow is also going to become kind of softer. You know, there's those all kinds of things that make that possible, you know, but I don't feel like an expert in lighting and shadows. I just know that when you know, when you increase light, things happen differently. Increase size of the light. And you can turn this intensity down so it's not too overblown. And as you can see, now it looks even, I think it looks even better, you know. But all of this is just your kind of like artistic preference now. The basic technique, I already showed you it, but now I'm just gonna do a little bit of that, you know, kind of like, yeah, I guess I already said it, artistic preference. You can actually turn this a little bit, this cube, maybe you can turn it like this. And now, actually, you know what? I want to move it down a little bit and maybe even increase the amount of light. Maybe like this. I don't know. Okay. Now, let me just go in to my folder and find the best emoji of all time, which is this one, right? I remember I saw this and I asked one of my friend, what is this? What is this emotion even? You know, what is that? And I remember he said, he just improvised and he said, "I cry you the fuck up." And I think that's perfect. So I don't think they meant to make it this way, but well, they made it. So I'm going to use it. Now you can double click this and go into your window, into your folder, and drag this emoji inside over here. Now connect, here it looks even funnier, I think. Connect this to the color channel of this material and boom. It kind of is reflected on the cube. Now I think it doesn't look that good right now. So let me maybe rotate it just a little bit around. Maybe I have to, again, move around this light source. Maybe move it up a little bit, like this, so it looks kind of more realistic. I don't know. You can actually click on here, press Shift V, and go in this filter and click geometry only, so that it's cleaner. And now you can drag around this light source, and as you can see, it looks a little bit better, right? Let me press again F5, go in here again, change this back so I can see some of the indicators. And what's good about this technique is that you can zoom in, and it's gonna zoom into the scene, and it's still gonna look kind of okay, it's still gonna look kind of okay. It's gonna look like, oh, this actually fits, my brain is getting the illusion that it actually fits in the scene. The shadows are kind of correct. You might think that, you might look around and think, oh, the shadows actually don't match correctly, but it's enough to give you like the illusion, right? Okay, now what also you can do here is you can click on this material tag, and you can increase the length, like let's say 150, right? And no, 150 is going to be too much. 125, 125. And now if you drag this offset here, do I need... Yeah, I can actually go outside of this IPR because usually it's slower. And you can drag this something like that so that it's even more, let's say 135, 135. And now you drag it up, drag it up and down. Maybe increase this fillet even more, right? And you go in the start IPR, and you can see that this looks different. I don't know. This is again the moment where you kind of do these artistic choices. Do you like the way it looks? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I actually want to go back a little bit and change this to 115, 115 maybe, and then center this and see how this looks. Let's again start the IPR. Yeah, what else can you do? You can actually apply the same material to the plane so that you can't see it right now. Maybe if you disable this, you can see that if you turn this to the side, you're gonna see that the reflections in it. No, it's not visible right here. Maybe if I change the color to black, yeah, now you can see that the reflections are green. And if I delete this material, the reflections are still gray. And the reason for that is because if you turn off this and you turn off this, you can see that the plane is obviously gray, so the reflections are gray. And the shadow catcher, which is this plane, it gives the reflections to the cube, right? So it should have roughly the same. It should have roughly the same. Again, let me show you what happened here. It should have roughly the same coloring, right? So it looks convincing. You can even double click this, disable this reflection, and maybe even, you know what you can do? You can copy this texture and go on the luminance, which is just going to make it a little bit more pronounced. The effect is going to be a little more powerful. Now, if you again click this and enable this back, you can see that now the reflection is looking pretty, it looks, actually, let me move it down a bit because it looks like it's floating above the ground, right? And now if we double click this again, connect this back, as you can see, yeah, it's not absolutely clear, but sometimes you can't see these things, but your eyes very often can. It really depends on the scene. But you know how you look at something and you think, this doesn't look quite right. For example, right here on this bottom side, you can see this green a little bit. And if I delete the material, oh, actually the effect is quite noticeable. Okay, well, let me Control Z. So yeah, this is the technique. And obviously you can add more stuff. For example, you can go and find a capsule. Boom. You can move this capsule, for example, somewhere here, right? You can also create a new material, new node material, apply this again. And as you can see, it already looks kind of good, right? Maybe you can even increase the segments of this so that it, you know, just in case it looks a little blocky, it doesn't. And now you can go into your folder, and I have already, you know, I have prepared this image, and I'm going to drag it again in here. Actually, no. That's not the way you drag it. You go into this node material and then you drag it, okay? And drag it like this, connect this to the color, boom. And right now, as you can see, it's not aligned properly. You can actually go here and you can, you know what you can do? I think you can offset. Let me just turn this off so it's a little faster. Yeah, you can offset this. You can fiddle around with these settings, make it maybe scale a little higher, and something like this maybe, you know, so it looks like it's so you can see the point of interest, not the point of interest, but the part of the image that you want to use. You can, this way you can just show the right part, because the image is obviously quite big. You know, there's a lot you can do more with this stuff, but most of the time you're just gonna wanna you know, it depends on your, you know, whatever your mood and whatever, you know, if you want to fiddle more with this, you can, you know, there's kind of like a saying in 3D graphics that it's not really a saying, it's just a thing where you can fiddle with the settings for a long time until the cows come home, you know. And if you don't just say to yourself, okay, this is done, I'm moving on, then you can you know, you can do it for a long time. So I'm just gonna take this and I'm just gonna say this is done. Let's move to the third and final part of this, of the making of this thumbnail. Okay. Actually, let me just fiddle just a tiny bit more, increase the intensity of this. But before we move on to the next part, actually you have to press Shift R, and this is going to render the image, okay? This is going to render the image. Now you can click on this and save it in your folder. You can choose the JPEG, click OK, and let me name it something fitting, which would be thumbnail part 02. Okay. So now you just drag this into your Photoshop file, not file, but a Photoshop program, and it's going to open it up. Now you can create a layer, new layer. And what I usually like to do is take this brush tool and change the flow. Usually it's at 100, but I like to change it to something like 10, maybe 8, 9. And then I just like to kind of try to look at this image and see if it needs more focus, because usually when you darken the parts which become darker, they can kind of create the focus in the middle, right? And I can just color this like that, and just as I start to feel like it's a little bit too much, I maybe change the opacity a little bit, you know, so I feel like, okay, this is fine. Now I create another layer and then I do this again, you know, I try to color it, and it's kind of hard to tell when it's too much. So just when I feel like it's too much, I will again change the opacity and see if at which point do I feel like it's too much. So right now, I'm just not gonna go into this too much. I'm just gonna do whatever feels okay for now. And obviously, if you spend more time on it, it's probably gonna look better up until a point, because very often you can spend more time on things and they start to become worse looking. They start to just you kind of start destroying the progress, which is never a good place to be. Okay, so yeah, this is the shadowing part, and I think, there's actually one more thing you can do. You can go in these adjustments, you can click on this brightness and contrast, and usually I like to increase this a little bit, increase the brightness and increase the contrast a little bit. And one little trick you can do is you can click on this mask, click invert here. And what this is going to do is now there's no contrast is going to be visible. But if you go in here, click on this mask, take a white brush, okay? Remember to set this back to 100%. And now the parts where you draw are going to be the ones where this effect is visible, right? As you can see in this tiny icon here, all the middle part is where it's visible. And if you click this, you can see the difference, right? It's a subtle difference, but it's there. Now, the final step that I like to do sometimes, which is, I like to take advantage of the Photoshop's new feature, which is the generative AI fill. And you can actually, let me just disable the shadows, click on this background and go into this. Actually, I think you need to first take the lasso tool, right? And let's say I want this emoji to have some arms, right? And let me just drag just a basic shape where maybe the arms could be. And I can maybe drag around here. And let's go into this generative fill and say balled up fists. This is a bit dangerous because it might think that this is something, not safe for work. And it might, not let you do that. Yes, of course. Sometimes this happens. So you have to be, maybe I can say fists. Because it's very, very careful. It doesn't want to do any of the, any like not safe for work stuff. Maybe palms. Yeah, you have to be extra careful to not trigger its kind of like not safe for work filter or whatnot. And you can wait a little bit, and it's gonna give you, something now. Oh. It actually thought that I said palms, like palm trees. Okay, that's a fail. Let me change this to hands. So, yeah, this is interesting, It just, sometimes, the AI really shows you your own mistakes, because it's not that stupid, right? Oh, this, it might not be what you're looking for, but this is usually for me the kind of like the last step. I want to add some stuff, right? And it even adds very good shadows. And that's funny. It's not funny, but it's for me it's just interesting to see how good the AI is in the Photoshop. And it's just creating a little bit of a, maybe it's kind of terrifying actually. If you think that you would see something like this and it's kind of coming to hug you, that's not great. That's just not great. And so yeah, I think that I'm gonna merge these two, create smart object and rasterize. And what this is gonna allow me to do is if I take the eraser tool and I alt right click here to increase the size and up, if I drag up, not letting go, not letting go of the right click, I can decrease the hardness of this. And now you can, on this layer, which is the shadow layer, I feel like the shadows are a bit too much on the cube itself. So I'm gonna take this maybe increase it even more, and just click a bunch of times so it deletes. You can see what's happening maybe. No, you can't see. I can't show it to you really. Maybe I can show it to you by creating this layer like this, and you can, let's disable the hands, and you can see what's happening is I'm gonna take this again. No, the eraser, not the magic background eraser, and you can see that it's deleting these shadows. Okay, let me press Ctrl Z a couple of times so it goes back, and let me delete this, and now I can, okay, I need to select this layer first so that I delete, so that I am deleting the shadows, right? And I can just, you know, delete the shadowing because it turns out I overdid it before. And I think, yeah, now it looks better. Maybe on this guy as well, because he's kind of like the point of interest as well. So yeah, this is basically it. Obviously, if you spend more time, you know, if you spend more creative energy, maybe you can even add a, what could be a hat for a fish? Let's go into generative fill and say, what could I say? A fisherman's hat. Hopefully this is not going to trigger the not safe for work filter. And let's wait until it finishes thinking. Let's see if it comes up with, yeah. I don't know if this is a fisherman's hat, but it looks, oh, it even added some eyes. That's probably not what I want. Yeah, I think the first one is gonna be okay. So yeah, you know, in this case, I don't think I need the hat. I'm gonna be okay with these hands, and yeah, this is the tutorial. That's how easy it is. Thank you for watching this, and I will probably see you in the next tutorial, right?